Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Stacks. I'm Christy Pearson with Friends of the Hennepin County Library. We are delighted to have you with us on this beautiful summer evening in Minneapolis. Thank you so much for joining us for this fascinating author talk. Our moderator, Annika Fajardo, is the author of Magical Realism for Non-Believers, as well as several books for middle grade readers, including Meet Me Halfway, Encanto, A Tale of Three Sisters, and What If a Fish, which won a 2021 Minnesota Book Award. Our guest of honor, Erika L. Sánchez, is a Mexican-American poet, novelist, and essayist. Her debut poetry collection, Lessons on Expulsion, was published by Grey Wolf in 2017 and a finalist for the PEN America Award. Her debut young adult novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, was a New York Times bestseller and a National Book Awards finalist. Time recognized it as one of the best YA novels of all time. Most recently, Sánchez published the critically acclaimed Crying in the Bathroom, winner of the Chicago Review of Books Award, now available in paperback. It is my great pleasure to welcome Annika Fajardo and our guest of honor, Erika Sánchez, to Talk of the Stacks.
Thank you, everyone. So happy to be here. And you might hear a toddler in the background, and that's my daughter. So hopefully she won't be too loud.
Oh, well, I always like to see little children in the background of Zoom calls. Erika, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm so excited to talk to you tonight. So I'm here in Minneapolis, and I know you're in Chicago, and it sounds like you're having some interesting weather there. Mm-hmm. Did we hear a tornado warning? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm in the basement. We're all in the basement because there's a warning right now. It's probably nothing, but you know, okay. It's good to be cautious.
It is very good. We're glad you're in the basement. We're glad we're glad you have a basement, and also hopefully there won't be any disruptions, and that we'll just go very smoothly, and the weather will just dissipate where you are.
Sounds right.
Yeah. I am so excited to talk to you about your memoir, and congratulations, just came out in paperback, which is very exciting. And I know the paperback looks different because I have the hardcover.
Yeah, it does. I love both of them. The paperback is just so cute though. It's like bright pink, it's smaller, it's I don't know. I love it. I mean, I love both, but there's something about
the paperback. Is that a picture of you on the cover?
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, I was 17 and I was on a trip in senior year, and a teacher snapped that picture of me and my friend. My friend was cropped out, but he was there originally. And she had this picture this whole time. She's just like a really devoted teacher, and it doesn't really surprise me that she had it, but I find it so special that she would have something from like ages ago and that she shared it with me. So it was cool.
That is very cool. A good teacher, it can make such a huge difference in your life. It's just amazing.
Oh my God, yeah. I've had so many great teachers, a lot of terrible ones, but I don't think about those. You know?
Well, you can learn something from terrible teachers too, I think.
I have. I mostly learned how not to treat other people,
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get started by just talking about your introduction to the memoir. Starts out with sort of a description about women of color and that our stories matter, which just struck me so personally and profoundly. And I was wondering, so this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I know the book is written for your daughter. But so I was wondering, so other than her, who is your ideal reader for the memoir? And also, is there is there the opposite of that? Is there a non-ideal reader for it also?
I could tell you who hates my books. And I don't write for them. I don't write through the white gaze. I don't cater to whiteness. I challenge white supremacy. And so people who believe in those notions often have an issue with my work. And so, I guess that's perfectly fine. But I get complaints, like they're mad that I haven't written something for them. And, for so long, we've had very little to work with, and so here I am writing a story about my community, for my community, showing the beauty of like immigrants and their children and all of these things that I'm seeking to do in the novel. And they're just upset that it's not about them. And that just really troubles me, that people can't enjoy work that is about people that are unlike them. That's often my favorite kind of work because I learned something, but I guess not everyone's trying to learn. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And so who do you hope will read this book?
Yeah, I guess I should have gotten to that, but typically I'm thinking of a young woman of color. It's changing now because I'm writing a novel about motherhood and a woman that's very, very unlike me, and so it's quite a shift. But I'm speaking to another generation. But in this particular book, I'm speaking to women in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Some elderly people were at my launch yesterday, and it was wonderful. I was like, wow, you read my work. Like, it's beautiful. And there was one woman there who had been giving it away to people. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Thank you. I gave her a hug. I was moved. And so I guess I write for those who have been disenfranchised and are angry about it and want a better life, but don't know how to get that, how to belong to yourself in a society that just minimizes you and makes you feel at times like you're insignificant. And so, yeah, to all the weirdos out there, the people who don't like it are white supremacists, and some people don't like that I also write about my vagina. I've been told that it's very off-putting, and so I find that interesting and funny. So yeah, whoever's not offended by all those things.
And your family.
Yeah.
Does your family read your books?
Yeah. My brothers in particular are really good readers and very intelligent humans. I hate to admit that publicly, but that's true. Their opinion matters a lot to me, and so because I respect them, and so they have given me a lot of praise for the book and are happy for me and support me. And then there's my mom, who prefers not to read the book, which I think is best for everyone, because there's a lot of suffering that she doesn't know about. And so it's not important that she knows. And she made that choice, and I am relieved, honestly.
We don't, as memoir writers often, especially emerging memoir writers, often feel like, well, I can't tell this story because I'm going to offend somebody in my family, or my mom's not going to like it, and so I think that's really freeing, and probably for people to hear that you've reached an agreement and still been able to write your story.
Yeah, I mean, I told her what it was going to be about. She's like, I don't want to read it. They're like straight up right away. And I said, cool. Because then I feel more free
Yeah.
to write, and her feelings are taken care of. And so like we don't have to, it's not going to be a conflict. And honestly, I feel like um it would just it would be uncomfortable. Like I don't want to talk to my mom about, sexual things. Like, yuck.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just don't read my book. Yeah, my brothers skipped a few chapters too. They were like, not gonna happen. I'm like, great, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still an important story to be out there.
Yeah, I think it is. And it's taken so long for people to understand that we exist, first of all. That we're not just women that are that exist to serve and to please and to take care of and baby and soothe and all of the things. Like, we are complicated human beings and we contain multitudes, and um we should be given the space to express that, and it's about time. I just remember watching Insecure and thinking, this is so groundbreaking, this is so historic, because they were making a show about a, a black woman, and it was just about her life and what she experienced, and it was so intimate and raw and weird. And I was like, that inspires me to create in that way.
Yeah. And so one of the things I've noticed um, that really struck me while I was reading the book is that you make some references to this imagined life. So, and I identified with all of them. You talk about when you were a kid living in the future and kind of imagining like this, well, this is what my life is going to be like. Or when you were hoping to meet the man of your dreams with a meet cute kind of, that you could tell a story about.
Yeah.
And then you also talk about your experiences with anxiety and depression. And I know that both of those are also really rooted in storytelling and like the stories that you tell yourself or that your brain is telling you, depending on how you want to think about it.
Mm.
And so I was thinking about sort of the storytelling theme throughout both the book and also I think just kind of our lives in general, and how we, even ambition is storytelling, right? Because we have to like tell ourselves that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So how do you decide kind of what comes out as fiction and what comes out as essay? How do you decide sort of the pieces of you, or how you kind of manage storytelling in that way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think I just listen to the story and what it needs to be. And I know that sounds like very magical and um, romantic and such, but it really does reveal itself. It I knew after writing my novel fiction, it's made up. I mean, essentially, to telling the actual truth, the literal truth as best as I could remember it, and making that leap for me was exciting to just like challenge myself. Like, can I do this? And also writing about myself in this way was very, very cathartic and healing, and I was able to just move past so many different wounds that I had. and make them into art and share them with people and affect people's lives with those stories. And so it was exhilarating to me to be so honest and so vulnerable, because that's the kind of writing that I love. And then now I'm shifting to adult fiction, and the point of view is different. The character is a person very much unlike me. And so, yeah, it's another leap. I have to leap every single book, or else I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I'm not excited by it. So I had this dream the other day where I wrote a book that was very similar to Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. And in the dream, I was like, girl, you already wrote that book. Like, what are you doing? And so it was kind of funny that even in my dreams, I'm like, no way, not gonna happen.
I'm making a leap into an adult novel also, and I know that I just can recognize that feeling of sort of, it's a little bit it's like exciting, but also like jumping off a cliff.
Kinda, yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, but you know what? I've read a lot of books. So I've written some books also, and so it's gonna work out.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
so that makes me, here's another question I had for you is, so I loved when you talk about laughing at your own jokes, because like, if you can't laugh at your own jokes, like what are you going to laugh at, right?
Yeah.
And writing is such a solitary act, as I feel like you really, I mean, because it's a solitary act, you have to have a certain amount of ego or bravado to keep going. Otherwise, if you have to believe that someone is going to want to hear your thoughts and know what's going on in your head. But then you also referred a little bit to imposter syndrome, or whatever you want to call that. And that's like, how do you feel about the balance between that ego and that imposter syndrome, especially as a woman of color, kind of going back and forth? And also, what advice do you have?
Yeah, there's also a lot of desperation mixed into that, It's not just, it's like the ego for sure, but also I need to make a life out of this, or I don't know what I'm going to do. And so it was just this mixture, and I vacillated between feeling like, I'm amazing, I could do whatever the fuck I want, and the world is gonna know me, and all these silly thoughts. But then I would like slip into a depression and feel like, what is the point? I can't do this. I can't exist in this world. This world is too hard. And so, yeah, it was just, it took obviously persistence and like just feeling like writing was going to save me somehow, and it did.
You had to save yourself, right?
Yeah, I did. And I think that's part of the ending, that I felt that if I didn't transform myself, then I wasn't going to survive. There had to be a radical shift. And it was terrifying, but I made it. And so yeah, life is just so unpredictable. I'm sure everybody feels that way. I don't know, I just didn't imagine everything to unfold in the way that it did. But I'm also really grateful and feel like that's exactly what was supposed to happen somehow.
Yeah, you got like your narrative arc.
Yeah.
Like you lived it. I mean, do you think that writing is partly trying to kind of exert control on life, both even especially with memoir writing and writing about your own experiences. I feel like there's some kind of at least for me, I feel like there's some kind of grasping for control and for like, if I can put this into a narrative, then if I can make it make sense on a page, then there's a reason for these things.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but it's not so much control, but just making sense of what is happening and what has happened, and that like just constant frustration, curiosity of wanting to know why things are the way they are.
Yeah. Yes. So that reminds me that you quote Chris Rock saying that comedians notice shit, which is, with the second I read that, I was like, oh, that's what writers do too. And then I kept reading down the page. I was like, oh, that's what she just says. That like constant noticing stuff and really honing like your like there's like a reason for being observational when you, or like there's a reason for being a voyeur when you're a writer, right? Or maybe a comedian too. It's all because you need to have material. I don't really know why we have to do it.
I am so nosy about people, and not in a way where, I'm like judging them. I just really am curious about what people are like and what they care about and where they come from. And that satisfies me greatly. And, I think you have to be curious about human beings or else you wouldn't write, I think. But yeah, it's an interesting quality to have, to always be paying attention to everything. And honestly, sometimes it's exhausting and I don't like it. And I just want to go about my business. But I notice things that a lot of people might not. And that's just because I've trained my eye, or I believe, and because I am sensitive. So yeah, it's writers, we're strange people.
We are strange people. Do you put things that you observe in your books, do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Like, do you use like the weird thing you saw? Does that end up
all the time?
And do you take notes on it? Like, or
Yeah.
just remember them? Or you write it down?
I often write them down, or I do a voice memo, or like send myself an email or something. It's I just have like little snippets of just like images, moments, dialogue, and I don't know where it's gonna fit, but I feel like it's telling me something, and so I try to pay attention.
Yeah, I love that. That's just such an important thing. Ni de aquí ni de allá. I love that phrase, and it's such the perfect way to describe that feeling of being an outsider between cultures. And when I was reading that part, I was thinking about, there's a stereotype of an outsider for people who are bicultural or biracial, that the place they feel, I think that that the general public, i.e. the white public perhaps, think that they feel out of place when they're in the mainstream, when they're in the white cis straight culture. And I love the way you talk about also feeling like an outsider in your Mexican family, because you can, when you're that duo, you can feel out of place in both places, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I don't know, I think it might surprise white readers to know that there's this like, we feel not fitting in both places. It's like, it's never enough.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that kind of feeling of like not being enough of one or the other, or how that fits in with your writing?
Well, people will be surprised to learn about this duality, right? This sort of living paradox, because we haven't had many of our stories published or on screen. So like, I don't think they've ever thought about us. Like it's just something new now. And I think that's why books are so important, because then they open up these, well, they open a world up to people who may not have access to it. Um, and so I think that's really valuable. Um, and not, oh boy, sorry,
It's a tornado.
tornado. Okay.
Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's okay. It's just another warning. Anyway, not belonging anywhere, it just kind of becomes your reality when you, I mean, for me, I didn't fit in with, white society culture. I was very much rejected by white people in many different ways. Um, I I posed many threats to them, I suppose. I don't know. Um, and then in my Mexican family, I was a feminist. I was outspoken. I was an artist. I, you know, dressed really weird. Wore these like terrible thrift dresses. Um, and my parents were just like, "Who is this child? Like, where did she come from? Why did this happen to us?" And so, yeah, it feels really lonely when you're rejected on all fronts, and you're constantly searching for your people. And I didn't find my people until, you know not too long ago. And so, um, yeah, it's a really tough existence, and feeling like that you're not accepted for who you are from, from many different people. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You you know what's funny is I also lived in Spain for a while when I was in college. So I loved the part about Spain. I was there probably a decade before you.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and we didn't have the euro when I was there. That's when I knew. I was like, oh,
Oh
cheese,
wow.
much later.
Okay. Yeah.
um, and and I know I didn't realize until later that it was maybe kind of strange that I decided to go to the colonizer instead of go to Colombia where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
um, and people have said to me like, well, what was that all about? What kind of like
Yeah.
self-hatred is that? But when I was in Spain, all I wanted was to blend in. I just wanted to just belong. And you say in that section, I'm going to read this little quote: when you don't belong, you learn to make a nest of the unknown. And I was like, oh, fold down that page. um can you talk about that? I just love that. I mean, that's where I'm like, oh, she's a poet. But kind of that
Yeah.
feeling and that nest. What is that nest?
That nest is, I guess, your own spirit, and yourself. And for women, oftentimes we feel like we don't belong. Um, we don't want to belong. I think for so long, women have had to live in a way that was that is very oppressive, and a life in which they don't have a lot of choices. And I wanted to reject that, and I wanted to live a life where I made my own decisions, and I did whatever I wanted, and my life was mine and mine only. And so for me, going to Spain gave me that sense of liberation, that I could do something this grand. And now I understand like how I mean, in my family, that's just not something that any woman has ever done. And it's because they haven't had the opportunity. And I'm the first one to be able to, like, again, make this leap. And I'm just really going for it, because it's something that my ancestors, I think, have been fighting for, and I'm going to take advantage of this life, and um and I want to make that also available to other women, where a life where you make your own choices, that you don't have to be married to someone just to survive, that you can leave a marriage if it's hurting you. And so, yeah, a lot of like really feminist ideas.
Yeah. I I love the way you kind of honor ancestors and the women who came before you, and instead of, I think it'd be really easy to just kind of wallow in that, and instead seeing it as an opportunity, like you just said, to live your life and to seize the day.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't know how to live otherwise, honestly. I just it scared me for so much of my life. I'm like, is this how it's gonna be? Like, I can't do this. I can't do this forever. And luckily my life transformed in many different ways. And so I'm able to be content and free and mobile, and just I live exactly how I want to.
It's so inspiring. I love it.
Thank you.
So you're really good at titles. I love the title of both of the books. I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter is such a great play on like the plot of the book. And then Crying in the Bathroom, when you first look at that, you think, oh, it must be about being sad, crying in the bathroom out of distress. And then there's this great reference to a time you peed your pants, so you were laughing so hard that you had to go to the bathroom. And so it's like it's like crying in the bathroom isn't necessarily going to be like the worst thing ever, right? But it is about big emotions. And
Yeah.
so and you show us those big emotions throughout the whole book, and in the novel too. Do you think, like, how do you rein in, or how do you use big emotions in your writing and on the page? And do you think writers have to have these outsized emotions? I know I do, so it's possible that everyone does.
I just assume that all writers are way too sensitive and like feel a lot of feelings, because I think that it's necessary to connect with people, is to feel very deeply. Well, but there's also many kinds of different books. But if we're talking about literature, I think that definitely one who is writing a book should feel deeply, and in a very complex way that other people haven't considered before. Perhaps you have to see the world differently, or else there's nothing for you to offer. But I'm sure people would disagree with that. I don't know.
I agree. So
Okay.
it must be right. Do you cry while you're writing sad parts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty consistent crier, and just many things make me cry, good and bad. And so writing, definitely, I have to feel certain things, and sometimes that's how it manifests. So yeah, I also laugh a lot, so that's pretty nice.
It's good to have the whole range. Well, and books are better when they have the whole range, right? We don't want to just suffer the whole time we read a book. We don't want to just have it be light necessarily. At least I don't, as a reader. I want to have the whole.
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah,
range
me
of
too.
emotions.
Because that's not accurate if you're just showing one side.
Yeah. Um, so I want to talk about naps. You reference your daily nap, which I am a huge believer in naps. It's part of my process, I tell myself.
Mhm.
Um, but I love the way you describe naps being a sort of a little break from yourself, from your own brain, which I had never thought about it like that. I was like, yeah, that is kind of what it does. Can you talk about your naps and sort of your creative process and how you work? Everyone always wants to know that.
Yeah, well, the naps are very important. Um, because yeah, I do get tired of my own thoughts and I feel like fatigued by my ruminations and um just obsessions and uh like just emotions really. I say that I get tired of being a person for that long, and so I have to like have a break from that. um I don't know if this is how a lot of other writers operate, but um it's nice to know that you also believe in the nap. um I feel like it resets my mood a lot of the time. If I'm irritable, if I take a nap, usually I'm fine. Um, and I also, my writing process is super weird and idiosyncratic, and I don't really know how to explain oftentimes, but my brother insists that I have ADHD, and I think that he's correct because my mind just darts from thing to thing. So I may be writing, but then I'll like repair some pottery or like just something bananas. And then I'll start to read, and then I'll go on a walk, and I'll take notes, and take a nap, and then like it just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's just all over the place. But my life is very much fueled by creativity, and I just want to be creative and present as much as possible. And so that's always my goal. Um, and it's been going well.
And how does being a mother fit into that?
Um, she makes me pay attention to things that I may have missed, or just paying so much attention to her. I feel like makes me a, um, a better observer. I don't know. And I feel more present because I want to enjoy my time with her, because I know how improbable this all is, that I get to live my life like this, that I'm not working in a factory, that I'm not, struggling, and that I don't get to see her. And so I'm very aware of that, and I just want to be there with her, and not and kind of shut my brain off, because I have I have the work day to do that. Like, she doesn't need to be subjected to anything else.
So then you have kind of your family time and your work time, and you separate those things out.
Yeah. And it bleeds together at times. But that's fine also. But yeah, I just really want to be present for her, because that's the best thing that I can give her.
Yeah. And a book.
Oh yeah, yeah. She really loves that her name is in a book. She points
Oh.
at it and says Sojourner. It's very cute. Very
So
cute.
cute.
Yeah.
So, and you said you were working on a novel for adults, and I'm sure readers of I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter are waiting for your next YA. Do you think you would go back to that, or are you going to continue to just keep jumping around? What are you thinking now?
Back to it. I have a concept that I've been thinking about for a few years, but it's just I haven't gotten to that phase in my life. I just want to accomplish many, many, many things and write so many books. And I feel like I have a lot of ideas that I have put on a shelf for now because I just don't have the capacity. But definitely, and also I'm working on a children's book, but I'm kind of stuck at the moment and I'm just letting it be and it'll come when it comes.
Well, we're really lucky that that you have all these ideas and you're just going to keep going and keep giving us books. So we're happy for that.
Thank you.
And I know it has been such a pleasure for me to get to talk to you. And I know we have a lot of people who have questions. And so I am going to turn this over to Rob from Friends of the Hennepin County Library so that we can get to audience questions. Thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you. Great questions. I really appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks so much for inviting me to the screen and just for that brilliant conversation, Annika. We're so grateful to you for leading us through the first portion of the program. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Gowdy. I'm the events director for Friends of the Hennepin County Library, and it's my pleasure to join tonight's program to moderate the audience Q&A portion. And just a reminder as we get started, if you do have a question for Erika, please click the Q&A icon on the bottom center of your screen and ask the question through the Q&A interface. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So Erika, this is from Brooke. She wants to know, how long did your memoir take you to write from conception to end of final draft? And thanks for being here.
Yeah. It's usually the answer I give is 6 years. I think that's roughly how long it took from the initial essay to the publication. And my previous book took 5 years. And then my poetry took 10 years. And so it seems like maybe I write a lot of books that I crank them out, but it takes me a really long time. I'm very meticulous. And I always just say that it's going to take as long as it needs. And I don't have deadlines because I don't believe that's how my writing process it would thrive.
And a follow-up question based on Brooks, did the pandemic allow you more time to work on the memoir, or did it give you less time since you were home with family?
I had a fair amount of time to work. My daughter hadn't been born yet. And so when I was revising a lot of it, but when she came along, yes, things started to shift, and I wasn't as dedicated as I used to be. But it ebbs and flows, and I think that's okay. And I love my life, and I just accept it for what it is.
And we have another question about writing. This is from Jen. The memoir is written in the form of essays. And how did the form of the book take shape? Did you write it in the order it appears, or did you write some pieces and then fill in the gaps in between?
Yeah, it was all out of order, except for the last essay, which I wrote last. But yeah, I didn't really have an arc in mind, and then I realized that there was an arc, but I hadn't really planned on it in a literal way. And so it just kind of reveals itself, and you make all the changes that you feel are necessary to make it the best book possible. That's how I approach it. And so I don't even, what was the question again?
Did you write the book in the order it appears, or did you write some pieces and then fill in the gaps in between?
Yeah, I jumped around. my brain is not linear, let me say. Time to me is not linear. It's very weird and complicated. So
And the next question we have shifts kind of from the shape of writing to the voice of writing. This is from Katie. Can you tell us more about how you developed your writing style and voice? It feels like you're talking to the reader personally and that they're a friend with whom you're sharing your deepest thoughts and feelings.
thank you. That's what I wanted. I was hoping you would feel that way. Um, I've learned from so many different people. I'm a writer because of other writers, right? And so um, one writer that has inspired me in the way that she addresses difficult things with humor, Samantha Irby. She is so funny. And so reading her books gave me the audacity to really go there, to places that I wouldn't have considered. And also Mary Carr is someone I read when I was younger, and her memoirs are so raw and dank, and I feel like I'm in a really humid environment when I read The Liars Club, and yeah, so many others. I'm trying to think. I always blank, of course, when people ask me about books that have influenced me. Um, It'll come to me.
You mentioned Toni Morrison a couple times throughout the book. Is she one?
Oh yes, of course. That's silly that I forgot her because she's the queen. And she taught me how to really pay attention and how to write in a way that's authentic and honest, and not for the white gaze. For the literature that she wrote is for Black people, about Black people, and I learned from her how to, be specific and, say so much with, very few words. And um, I learned from her consistently. Like there's a portrait of her in my office.
Well, thank you to Toni Morrison and to you for that authenticity and honesty, because it just comes through in spades in the beautiful, beautiful memoir. We do have a couple questions, of course, about I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, so I want to get those in as well. Shannon asked, I just finished the novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, and I'm looking forward to reading the memoir. I'm wondering what it was like in the novel to write as a teenager and to capture their voice. And she also thanks you for being with us during a tornado warning.
Thank you. It seems to have passed, perhaps.
Great.
Yeah, writing as a teenager, I think I'm so, or I have been so wounded as a young person that I can really tap into that time, because it was just so raw, and I write about it a lot in different forms because it was just so hard to survive. And I just had to really remember what it was like to be a young brown girl who's angry and insecure and smart and an asshole, like all of these different things. But like really trying so hard to just make it and be who she is. And so yeah, it healed my inner teenager for sure to write it.
Another question about I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. Catherine says, I loved that book and the twist in the story. Spoiler alert, The perfect older sister had her secret. How did you come up with that idea?
I don't remember exactly how, but it felt like the perfect way to embody these dualities between the sisters. But it also shows that people are much more complicated than they appear. And that's something that she learns in the book. In the narrative, she starts to see that her parents are human beings with complicated histories. But yeah, I don't know when it like became part of what drove it forward. I'm a person who struggles with plot, and so as a poet, because I focus on other things, and so for plot, I was like, I need something that's going to keep this spicy throughout. Like how can I do that? And that turned out to be that secret.
Shifting from the novel to another topic, what advice would you give to aspiring writers, especially young people?
I have many pieces of advice, but I will try to be succinct. Just read and read and read and read and read some more, because that's the only way to become a good writer, is because you are immersed in it, you know the tradition, you are in conversation with other books. It's You cannot write in a vacuum, so just make sure that you are reading just across the board, different genres, different topics, different countries, different cultures, whatever, just to really understand what it is that you're trying to do, and have some guidance, because books have always been my guides. When I have struggled with something in a piece of mine, prose or poetry, books are usually what reveal the answer to me. So it's yeah, that's it. Just read and find your homies, find your community of people, and talk about books and share writing, and support each other, because it's so lonely sometimes, and it's really important that you have people who are looking out for you.
Well, we do have time for one more question, but before we do, I have a reminder for everyone listening. If you have not yet read Crying in the Bathroom, I have the hardcover right here from the library, but the paperback just came out. So if you have not yet read it, we'd ask you to please consider purchasing the bright pink covered paperback from our bookseller partner, Majors and Quinn. You won't regret it. It's a story that makes you laugh, it makes you cry. You want to share it with all your friends when you're done. So thank you so much for considering purchasing through Majors and Quinn. You could click the link in the chat to do that. When you do so, you are helping our local literary community to thrive. And with that, moving on to our final question. So we want to talk about what your hopes are for your books and what their legacies are. What did you hope from that would happen as a result of writing I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, and what surprised you about its legacy? And the same question for Crying in the Bathroom.
For Mexican Daughter, I really wanted to connect with young women of color, in particular Mexican women, and I hope that it could help in some form shift the way that they think about themselves and who they are and their place in the world, and that they could see bigger possibilities than before. And in Crying in the Bathroom, I mean, it's similar, but for women who are in their 20s and beyond to feel emboldened to make a change for themselves, to feel emboldened to belong to themselves and be who they are, and challenge the status quo. I'm a rebel rouser, and so I want people to just, make changes that will make the world better and will make their lives better. And yeah, the legacy, I don't know, someone recently told me that they got a divorce because after they read it. And I was just floored by that and quite moved, because wow, I didn't know my book could do that.
Well, thank you so much, Erika, for your bravery and for telling your truth, which allows obviously readers to do the same for themselves. So thank you so much for your beautiful work. And also thank you so much for joining us tonight in Minneapolis while you're in a tornado warning in Chicago.
No problem. Thank you. It was lovely. I appreciate it.
I also want to thank Annika Fajardo again for leading us in the conversation earlier. And thanks to all of you in the listening crowd for joining us tonight. Please remember to click the link in the chat to purchase Crying in the Bathroom. And on behalf of all of us at Friends, have a great summer. We'll see you in the fall. Have a good night.
Thank you.